Hey guys, we're going to be checking out Galactic War for Planetary Annihilation today. It's a little bit different game mode than the normal AI skirmishes because you're trying to conquer a galaxy, but you start off with limited technology, so you got to work your way up from there. And you see in this one, we can change your color, select your commander. Commander type doesn't really matter. The size of the galaxy can go from kind of small to really big. There's a how to play, you can read that on your own. And then the difficulties, of course, start at normal and go up to really difficult. So once you decide on how you want to play, go ahead and click go to war to get that started. As you can see, all of those locked scenarios, they change as you defeat different enemies. There's a little lore video you can listen to, and here we see the galactic map. Each one of those dots is a place you have to conquer. Anything with a colored circle around it is where there's an enemy. And you want to be sure to explore the ones without circles first, that way you can get some technologies to put here. But we're going to jump straight into a fight to show you what it's like to have nothing and what you start with. Also to keep in mind is that you cannot go back once you go into an occupied territory. So if you're prepared to fight, go ahead and move forward, otherwise try and explore a little bit. Now this system only has one planet, so we're not going to be too concerned about setting up camera anchors. But in other systems with multiple planets and moons, it's of course always good to do that using Shift 1, 2, and 3, etc. to use to set up multiple anchors. I'm going to go ahead and land a little bit on the left side of this area, that way I'm closer to the beach. Commanders can go in and out of water freely. They're not limited. They can build the naval factories and everything in the water. You can also build metal extractors and power plants, turrets, etc., radars, everything like that in the water itself. But the commanders of course have to do that unless you've got naval units to do it for you. Just taking a look at the ocean right now to see how far it stretches across the planet and whether or not the enemy might set up a naval army. I'm going to go ahead and queue up a metal extractor and energy plants by holding shift to place those down while the commander's working on this factory. And then once the factory's finished, gonna make some fabricators and then a small army, that way I can get it patrolling around the planet to hopefully find where the enemy base is. The thing to keep in mind for this mode is that because you're limited in your technologies, it's very important to build multiple factories. That way you can crank out a good sized army fairly quickly and recover from any losses that you might suffer. Gonna go ahead and use this guy to queue up those metal extractors. That's actually the south of the planet. You'll see me hit N to orient the planet north and south in just a minute. I'll do that throughout the game. It's not necessary, but it's good. You know, sometimes it's easy to get lost and difficult to get back to where you were looking at. Also, you'll see me later on set up a picture-in-picture, but I'm going to go ahead and make a different guide altogether for that, since it's a little bit more complicated, but not too bad. It's a very useful tool to help keep eyes on a different part of the map or a different planet and switch between 2 points of interest very quickly, in addition to having your camera anchors set up. So I've got these fabricators working now, and of course you can always set up a waypoint with your factory. Select the factory and right click somewhere, that way all the units produced from it will go to a different place. Right there I hit N, so now we're oriented north and south. And as you can see, all of those metal extractors are actually in the south of the planet. Just waiting for my commander to finish up this last power plant. One thing to keep in mind in this mode is that you do not start with storage of any kind. That's one of the things that you'll have to unlock and have in your data slots. So once he gets finished with that, I feel like I've got a decent amount of power production. I can go ahead and move on with making a couple more vehicle factories. Anytime that you have a layout that you don't like, you can hit escape or right click to cancel the build. And you're going to be hearing that your capacities are reached pretty constantly in this mode. That's fine, it's nothing to worry about. All you need to worry about is moving forward and dominating the galaxy, obviously. Since I've got a little army set up, I'm going to go ahead and hit that patrol button, click and drag across the entire planet and watch them spread out, hopefully finding the enemy base relatively quickly. One of these guys is going to get stuck in the ocean, and that's just one example of many of bad pathing that you're going to see in this game. It's one thing you have to keep in mind is for going around bodies of water or difficult terrain, things like that, it's pretty important to set waypoints for your units so that when you or trying to tell them to go to some place, they'll be able to make it. And the way you do that, of course, is by holding shift and then right clicking different points on the map for them to go to and follow through. So right now, all of my capacities, all of my productions, energy and metal are staying maxed out, and that's good. That's the way we want it to be, that way we're not having any deficiencies and having our production slow down. Once this third factory gets built, we'll be able to start cranking out a decent number of units pretty quickly. And I'm building all types of units this game, including the spinners, because I'm not sure what technologies my enemy has. They're all going to vary throughout the games. Some people will have the artillery launchers and advanced orbitals, but they might not use naval or air, or they might go completely air and not really have much of a bot focus, different things like that. So it's very important to be as prepared as you can be, developing your different units and being prepared for air attacks and naval attacks and of course land assaults. You'll see me set up a lot of different lines of turrets and the Gallet turrets as well, which are the anti-air. So our first enemy, well, that was one of the other things I put down fairly quickly, was a radar so that I could see the enemy just in case they came within range. So you see them coming down this way in the ocean. I'm just kind of concerned that they might be up near the top and building a couple naval units, so it was pretty good of me to put that naval factory out, get it started. And noticing that they're coming down this way, I'm going to go ahead and queue up this line of turrets. As you can see, they don't turn red when you put them in the water. That means that they can be built out there. It's just that you have to have a naval fabricator or your commander doing that. Unfortunately, you can't set turrets on top of rocks and things like that, but you can build walls in between them to make it more difficult for the enemy to get to your base, or if there are valleys and things like that. There are a lot of choke points on the metal planet that are easy to cut off and create bottlenecks and things like that with walls, and then of course set up defensive turrets around them and stuff like that. Queuing up a few naval units now, getting a fabricator, that way I can start building other things like metal extractors and whatever else I need out in the water. Naval units are air and ship based for the narwhal and land and ship for the orca. You also have a scout that you can use for checking things out, but they have very low hit points. I'm gonna go ahead and queue up a few defense turrets on this little island. That way we can have some protection in case they do have naval units coming by, trying to patrol and get close to our base. And of course, the most important thing in this mode is to find the enemy as soon as possible and constantly put pressure on them. One of my units finally found a metal extractor of theirs on land, and being set to free fire, took it out while it was driving by. You can change your unit's firing preferences to fire at will, hold fire, or return fire, and those are good based on different situations. You know, if you've got guys that you're trying to set up and basically have them maintain a border, it's good to put them on return fire. If you've got units that you're just trying to keep on the down low, I guess, you could put them to hold fire. That way they don't go off chasing units that they get engaged with. So now that those naval factories are done, I'm going to bring my commander back onto land, queue up the other naval units, and set a waypoint for them to start sending ships out into the ocean. That way they don't crowd up next to the factories.
Enemy commander detected.
Finally detected the commander. We see he's over here on this little stretch of island. So I'm going to do my best to start sending things around that way, and again, start buffing up defensive structures. And here we go, another example of really bad pathing. I should have sent them down south to go around, but all I'm going to do is queue up these and forget about them, unfortunately, so they're going to be stuck on the edge of this ocean the entire time. But as you can see, having multiple factories is really good because you start getting decent sized fighting forces put together really quickly, and as long as you keep those advancing and moving forward, you'll be pushing down your enemy base pretty quickly. So what I could be doing is setting up control groups using control 1, 2, and all of those, and then switching between my groups of tanks fairly quickly. I like to set my commander to control 1 because it's easiest to get back to him, and there is a preset hotkey for that. It's control C or shift C, something like that, and that's good. I just don't want to have to hit 2 buttons to get back to my commander as fast as possible. Once you do select units, you can double tap it though. For example, if I had him set to control 1, I could double tap control 1, it would select him and then put the camera focus on him. Same for the other units, the other unit groups. It also works for fabricators. If you hit F to select your idle fabricators and then hit it again, it'll focus on them. As you can see, I clicked across the ocean there, and these guys just go to the edge of the shore and sit there, since they're not super advanced on pathing just yet. So this fabricator is still working on those turrets, and all of my energy and metal has stayed at maximum for now, which is good. Unfortunately, torpedo launchers could be built, but not by any other unit unless it's naval or the commander itself. So I noticed they're having a hard time getting across, and they're just getting stuck. So I'm gonna go ahead and queue up the waypoints that I need to get them around. Hold shift and right click, and you'll see these green lines start appearing, and that's the path that they're gonna take. Metal extractors and other buildings that have been destroyed are still containing metal, and you can use fabricators to go over and reclaim them. That's the little bright green arrow on the action selection on the right side. It's the 4th one down. And just in case the metal extraction that you have going isn't sufficient enough, you can reclaim destroyed targets. It also prevents enemies from rebuilding them. So I'm just doing my best to set up defenses as strong as possible. I'm not sure where the enemy is or how they're going to be coming, but this is a pretty easy game since it's the first fight. It's just good practice to always maintain a strong defense. Here we go, we've got another sizable force coming up now, and it's 3 or 4 groups of tanks who are just moving around the edge trying to find where exactly the enemy base is. Naval fabricators, of course, have a pretty decent range, so they can build units on the land if they're close enough. I'm going to go ahead and set up turrets along this way just in case they want to try and move down again. And we see an enemy fabricator there, so these turrets will be able to keep them from advancing much further than that. And to orient north-south again. And I start moving up the naval units just to see if they have anything over here and destroy anything that's close enough. So these naval units now are just destroying metal extractors, which is hindering our enemy's economy. And we're going to be moving these groups forward now, trying to squeeze the enemy down as much as possible. And that's basically the name of the game. Just constantly put pressure and make sure that you've got enough factories to rebound from any losses that you might have. But the best thing to do is constantly being producing units anyway, so hopefully you've got a reserve force built up so that whatever your front lines are taken down, they can move around. We found the commander again, and we finally got eyes on some of their established base. Here I am setting up the picture-in-picture. You do that by pressing Q, that's the normal key that's set up. And just like the regular map, you can click and drag it around, you can zoom in and out. The first button I clicked was to switch it to the current view and make it, what I was focused on. The first button up there with the 2 arrows back and forth will switch your current view and the picture-in-picture, so you can jump back and forth between two places that you've got vision on pretty quickly. That's good for keeping an eye on your base and then whatever front line that you're trying to establish. And then finally our guys are moving forward, destroying pretty much everything that they can. We've got good sized groups of tanks going on, putting them into control groups now. And just missed that last tank, so I'm gonna pick it up and then put it in the final group. These guys didn't really have that much defense set up, but as you can see, they were trying to get an airbase going. Just didn't have enough production going on, I guess. And the Inferno's doing massive damage to buildings, which is what they're great for. It's just extremely short range, unfortunately. And then by this point, you know, it's pretty straightforward. You've got a big enough force, you just press on down and then take out the enemy. I could switch my picture-in-picture view to my base if I wanted to. It's just not necessary at this point.
Enemy commander detected.
There we see the commander trying to set up a couple more buildings, but it's not really going to be much he can do at this point. And focus him down. He does have a couple good-sized weapons, but thankfully tanks have a lot more hit points than bots, and they're a little bit more difficult to take out with one shot. It's pulling the spinners off to the side since they're not really necessary, and then decide just to go for it. Got 60 units going on right now, but the spinners aren't going to be able to attack. He's got his rapid fire and then his blue orb, I guess. And that's usually what's going to take out your bots as fast and quickly. But here you go. You see, get enough Inferno tanks on him, and he goes down really fast. So that's pretty straightforward. Like I said, some of the other matches that you're going to play are going to be much more complicated because the enemy's going to have a lot more technologies, and they're going to be set up much quicker and things like that. But the most part, just focus on the units you have, make sure that you keep up your production, and try and get the bonuses that you need. So once you've beaten them, you can explore the system and get whatever technology they have. So your additional data banks are very important so that you can have more than one technology. And you can move back and forth between all the territories that you have access to. There's no limit to how much you can move. It just keeps track of your turns. So if you're trying to be hardcore, try and get it in as few turns as possible. But just move throughout the free systems and pick up technologies when you can. Basic orbitals will get you different things. I think it'll be the ARKYD and the Astreus.
Scanning. Speed upgrade available.
This is really great since it doubles the commander's move speed. They're slow as hell initially. So there we see a red dot. That's where another enemy is going to be. 300% efficiency in mining, and allows the ability to store things, so that's great. We unlock that, and here's a duplicate, so you can't get more than one. You can't double up on technologies, so you only have the option to dismiss. If you were full, you have the option to delete one of your current technologies, or just dismiss the current one. And once you got a full stack, go ahead and move out and keep trying to win battles. It's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. It's a good way to practice early on. So I hope that was helpful, and look forward to next guides.